Lord. Happy, what is it today? Happy Monday. It feels like it's Friday the 13th, but it's just April 13th. But happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to the Joy Reid Show. Big ups to everyone. That is at watching us on all the different platforms. Why is this making noise?
Because you have the
Why
audio
is it making
on.
noise? Okay, just turn it off.
Right.
Watching on YouTube, Substack, Facebook, and also our Twitchies on Twitch. I actually met one of our Twitchies over the weekend. Met a Twitchie in person, so it was great meeting you, as well as all those listening on audio podcast platforms like Apple, Spotify. Be sure to hit that like and share button to help spread the word and help us out with the algorithm. We are climbing our way toward 500,000 subscribers on YouTube, 250,000 on Substack. We are way over 300. We're almost at 400 on Twitch. We've got a whole bunch on Facebook. We're doing all the things. So thank you to everybody and our amazing readers, our Team TJRS members. Just appreciate each and every one of you. Hope you had a great weekend. Okay, I'm sure you're noticing as I'm talking to you, my fabulous specs, my fabulous glasses. And they happen to be part of a promotion that we are starting this week, today, leading all the way up through Mother's Day. Now, as you know, I do love a good pair of glasses, right? Even though I got the eye surgery, I still like glasses. I still need them. I need readers. I just love specs. I love frames. I think they're fabulous. I'm really excited to share something new with you guys. This is secrets that only you TJRS fans will know. I have been working on my very own line of glasses. A lot of you guys in the chats have been saying, we want you to have some readers. So I've been working on my very own line of glasses. And over the next few days, I'm going to be introducing three of my very favorite frames, which are available exclusively at shopredbag.com, which we introduced to you on the show last year, shopredbag.com, through our partnership with Vontel Eyewear. Now, if you do not know Vontel, they were founded by two brilliant Black women who set out to fix something real, something that actually fit our faces, wider bridges, longer temples, proportions that are designed to be comfortable, let you feel confident, that don't pinch on your face. How they slide down your face and everything like that. Well, these glasses don't do that because they're designed literally for our faces. When you shop at shopredbag.com, you are not only buying something beautiful and investing in the same kind of businesses that are being attacked by this regime, you're also buying wonderful, beautiful things and investing in brands and creators that reflect our communities and reinvest in them. Minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, all of that's at shopredbag.com. And Vontel is one of those minority women-owned businesses, right? So this is why we're partnering with Vontel and shopredbag.com to do this, all right? So here's what we're doing. This is what I'm going to be doing. All this week, I'm going to be wearing a different pair of frames or trying on for you a different pair of frames in each show, okay? All this week. And I want to know what you think. Which ones do you love? Which ones, which ones speak to you? Which ones do you think should be sort of a basis for the design we're going to do? Now, the pair that I'm wearing right now is called Romari Bearden The Block. This is the box. The box is actually really fabulous. It's called the Block 2 1972. That's the frame that I'm wearing right now. And so what I love about this is it's not just like art, it's also history and culture. If you've heard of Romari Bearden, the artist Romari Bearden, this glasses frame is based on a design by artist Romari Bearden, and it's made in collaboration with the Bearden Foundation. So they honor an artist who captured the beauty and complexity of the Black experience through collage, which you can see the spirit of that right here. It's fabulous. So let me know what you think. Do you like the Block 2? Would love to hear your thoughts. And this is what I want you to do. Grab a quick pic of the screen right now. So I'm gonna give you a moment. Let me do this so the pic can look fabulous. Take the picture.
Yeah, keep the light out of it. Keep your head down just a little.
Yeah,
lift the frames up a little bit more. There you go.
There we go. So take a picture. Fabulous. Okay. Now I want you guys to take a picture, write down the Block 2, number 2, and just save that picture. Just push it to the side. I'm going to have a different pair of glasses from Vontel Eyewear on Wednesday and then on Friday. And then once you've seen all three, we're going to let you guys vote on which frame you like the best. And this is going to help me figure out how my personalized readers ought to look, right? And if you love the Block 2, you can get your own fabulous pair at shopredbag.com because we love you and you're part of our community. You can use the code JOY, J-O-Y, at checkout, and they're going to give you 10% off on your order, okay? So that's that. I'm going to take the glasses off because I don't want to be in shades for the rest of the day, but these are fabulous.
Yeah, there's so much light in those anyway.
They're fabulous. Okay, so let's just get to the start of the show. So the headlines, as you all know, Donald Trump's mental health is clearly questionable. Clearly he's not well, okay? Harry Sisson reported earlier today that he's been maniacally posting to his fake Twitter all night and all morning long. He's unhinged. On Sunday, he posted every hour on the hour. He was just posting and posting and posting and posting. Harry Sisson has been reporting on it. And of course, on Sunday, when he wasn't, posting himself as Jesus, which we're going to get to later in the show. The madman in chief, he announced that the U.S. is going to blockade the Strait of Hormuz after talks held in Pakistan to try to end the war he started has hit the skids. Now, Trump has been on social media just losing his mind, particularly with that Jesus post with what looked like demons floating above him. I guess he thinks they look like troops, which I'm going to tell you later on the excuse that he used to try to do it, and saying he's going to burn Iranian civilization to the ground, all wild. So we spoke earlier today with somebody great to talk to, Jeffrey Sachs. We spoke to him about this and also the other big loss for the regime in Hungary, where J.D. Vance's campaign trip, to stump for Viktor Orban ended in disaster. So we're going to talk about that later in the show. And we're going to play you that interview with Jeffrey Sachs. Okay. But what I want to talk about right now, before we get to all of that, is what's happening in the great state of California. Because I am afeared. I hadn't been really worrying about California, but now I'm like panicking. I think we're all panicking. So back on April 9th, let me show you this headline. This is the headline. And it showed that they have a jungle primary in California, meaning that instead of voting with a Democratic primary and a Republican primary separately, everyone goes into one big primary. They call it a jungle primary. And then the top two, regardless of their party, emerge and they go to the general. So if the top two are both Democrats, the top two are both Republicans, regardless of party, those two go to the finish line. On April 9th, they reported in this magazine, Governor's Magazine, that of the top three candidates, two of them were Republicans. Let's just put up this next post. This is going to show you who the top three were. The top three were two Republicans. You can see it up close. They're two Republicans. A guy named Chad Bianco, a sheriff, Steve Hilton, we've told you about on this show. He's sort of a Brexiteering British MAGA who Trump has endorsed. And Eric Swalwell was the top Democrat who broke out of the field you can see on the right side of your screen, a very, very big field of people. And the only Democrat who was sort of coming up to the top was Eric Swalwell, the congressman from California, who was literally just on this show last week talking about his race. Well, since then, and literally days after he was on here with us, he was accused of sexually assaulting a former staffer with whom he had sexual relations. And it wasn't long before it was not just one staffer, but four. I mean, we had literally just had him on the show. And then on Friday evening, he put out the following video. Here it is.
About me today through anonymous allegations. And I thought it was important that you see and hear from me directly. These allegations of sexual assault are flat false. They are absolutely false. They did not happen. They have never happened. And I will fight them with everything that I have. They also come on the eve of an election where I have been the frontrunner candidate for governor in California. I do not suggest to you in any way that I'm perfect or that I'm a saint. I have certainly made mistakes in judgment in my past, but those mistakes are between me and my wife. And to her, I apologize deeply for putting her in this position. I also apologize to you if in any way you have doubted your support for me. But I think you know who I am. For over 20 years, I have served the public as a city councilman, as a member of Congress, and as a prosecutor who went to court on behalf of victims, particularly on behalf of sexual assault victims. That's who I am and have always been. This weekend, I'm going to spend time with my family and friends. And I appreciate those who have reached out to me to show support. And I look forward to updating you very soon.
So that didn't last long. That didn't last long. Because as more sort of allegations started coming out, all of the support that Eric Swalwell had evaporated. And it wasn't long before he first suspended his campaign. And now we get to this part where he's not only suspended his campaign, he's resigning from Congress. You see it on the screen right now. So first he suspended his campaign. I was going to show that to people. What's the point at this point? Not only that, but with threats of being suspended from Congress. There was a vote and Democrats were already saying they would vote to suspend him from Congress. So here is his resignation, not just getting out of the campaign, but actually resigning from Congress. I'm deeply sorry to my family, staff, and constituents for mistakes and judgment I've made in my past. I will fight the serious false allegations made against me. However, I must take responsibility and ownership for the mistakes I did make. I'm aware of efforts to bring an immediate expulsion vote against me and other members. Expelling anyone with Congress without due process within days of an allegation being made is wrong. But it's also wrong for my constituents to have me distracted from my duties. Therefore, I plan to resign my seat in Congress. I will work with my staff in the coming days to ensure they are able, in my absence, to serve the needs of the good people of the 14th Congressional District. Okay, so life comes at you fast. Life comes at you fast. Now, we know the identity of at least one of the accusers. This is A4. One of the accusers who actually became non-anonymous. She is a former, she used to be, I think back in the day, she used to be MAGA. She voted for Trump way back in the day, and then she became a Kamala Harris supporter. Her name is Ali Samarco. She's a social media, very prominent social media presence. And she also happens to be the wife of a former DNC staffer. Who's a pretty well-known sort of social media presence himself, who's been defending her publicly. She came out publicly and said, yes, she's one of the accusers. And, you know, all kinds of conspiracy theories started. People started accusing her of taking money from Roger Stone, who, you know, actually posted about this after she did. And it just became really a mess. A lot of conspiracy, people feeling like it was an Al Franken-style smear campaign. To be sure, he has not been accused of a crime. These are just allegations. He has not been convicted of a crime. And so people were smelling a rat, right? Because this came like within 48 hours, I think within 24 hours of the Melania moment where she came out and did a press conference. So people are like, wait a minute, what's going on? It definitely felt really sort of conspiratorial. Not to mention the fact that Republicans, for the first time, have a really clean shot at grabbing the governorship of California, which, let me be very clear, would be a disaster, particularly heading into 2028. Not to mention, right, because, you know, California is a slow counting state. Put that state in the hands of a MAGA Republican. I don't know how that turns out. Not to mention what a Republican MAGA governor in a 40% Latino majority state would do to turn on the ICE fire hose on his own people, right? A cooperating California governor. This is a dream come true for MAGA. A right-wing governor, a Trumper, who's willing to turn on the spigot and start to do to immigrants in his own state, turn it up, crank up the ICE machine willingly. Not fight it. Let the police get involved. Think about the LAPD or the other police agencies being ordered by the guy. I mean, there's nothing about this that's not a disaster. Okay, this is why I said I'm internally like freaking out about it. So supporters and donors, though, had been dropping him. Like he's cooked, like very clear, right? So he suspends his campaign, then he drops out of the campaign. I will note that I have reached out to Representative Swalwell, soon to be former Representative Swalwell, to see if he'd like to come back on the show and address these claims by these various women. As again, they're now just allegations, but this is what's happening. And I just want to give you guys one little piece of background on this. Ali Samarco coming out about this was kind of the denouement of what had been a building campaign to get this information out. From my now understanding, from what I've been able to learn behind the scenes, there had been social media creators who were trying to get this information out as early as last November. Some of which you've heard of, people who are saying, hey, this guy's got a problem. Not sure he should still be going so far. Remember, this is a guy who ran for president. We never heard about this. This is a guy who's been a prominent congressperson, who's been grilling members of the Trump regime, including about the Epstein files. Nothing has been said. The one sort of scandal that's been attached to him over the last several years is this, what they call this Fang conspiracy, where he had, oh, it's not a conspiracy, where he had an alleged extramarital affair with a woman, a Chinese woman who turned out to be a Chinese spy, something he kind of brushed off. He did a Breakfast Club interview not long ago where he just brushed it off and said, yeah, they're just mad on the right that I'm a straight heterosexual white male who's not with them. And he's been able to survive all of that. And my understanding is the reason he's been able to survive all that is because he was Nancy Pelosi's guy. And so even as the, you know, Fang scandal, as the right likes to call it, was bubbling up, he was able to get on key committees on the Gang of Eight because he had the support of the then speaker. And so he was able to overcome it. Kevin McCarthy, I came across a 2023 sort of press availability. He did like a walk and talk in the Capitol in which he's saying the two people you don't want to put on key committees are Matt Gaetz and Eric Swalwell. Nobody picked it up. I've had Eric Swalwell on my shows going back years. Never picked it up, never heard anything like this. I mean, you definitely heard about Matt Gaetz. Even if you didn't live in Florida, you'd heard about Matt Gaetz. Don't let your teenagers around it, but you hadn't heard it about him. I talked to some, folks who worked in the hair and makeup room. That's a lot of times where the skeevies, the people who have the sort of skeevy behaviors will show themselves. Nothing. But again, they apparently were not the people that he was fraternizing with. The people that this fraternization allegedly was happening were on his own staff. And then today, as this is now coming out, all of a sudden now you're hearing, oh yeah, lots of people knew about this. I'm like, really? It would have been nice if maybe this had been raised within the Democratic Party. Because the question that I have is really in many ways not about Eric Swalwell. I think we have to hold people accountable for sexual misconduct, whether they're a D or an R. That's the difference between Democrats and Republicans, right? Republicans who are accused of things like this, number one, would never resign willingly from Congress. They just stay in and they get supported by their party and by their voters. Brett Kavanaugh, anyone? On the Republican side, if they hear about something like this, they stand behind them 10 toes down. They actually maybe like them more. Donald Trump has 25 named, we know their faces, accusers of sexual misconduct. And Republicans are like, we don't care about that. He said on tape that he could grab women by the P-U-S-S-Y. They don't care about it. And Republican women voted for him, including apparently one of the current accusers, at least the first time that he ran for president. It doesn't bother them at all. There is a Republican member of Congress who was going to be on that discharge petition that petition to run them out of Congress alongside Eric Swalwell, whose name is Tony Gonzalez, who was accused of having sex with one of his staffers who later ended her own life. Is that guy running to resign from Congress? No. And if he was running for governor, Republicans would not only vote for him, they would dare us to say anything about Tony Gonzalez. They won't say anything about Trump. They don't care when these things happen. The difference is Democrats, it takes them like 5 seconds to throw their guy under the bus. They shove them out with a quickness. Maybe that's a good thing about Democrats, right? But it also is a thing where they sometimes Al Franken it too. Because my problem with the Democratic Party is, number one, I didn't know. I'm just over here, a little black girl doing media. I'm not in his circle socially. I just have him on my show. You all knew that there was issues with this guy. He ran for president. Y'all never said anything. Y'all never got it out there. You guys love to leak behind the scenes information and make sure that people know all the tea you know. You sure didn't do it with this. You let this guy get to number 3 in a critical, can't lose gubernatorial primary, where the other two, Jason, if you could put up A6, are hideous for the civil rights and human rights of a vast majority of Californians. Either of these two guys would be a disaster for non-white Californians, a disaster for women, a disaster for Latinos, a disaster for Black Californians, or about 6% of the state, a disaster for Asian Americans who live in California, a deportation, mass detention, abusive disaster. These are Trumpers, and they are number 1 and 2. And y'all didn't think it might have been helpful to maybe vet number 3? Do you all not have an Oppo research arm inside of the Democratic Governors Association? Does anybody do Oppo research on the Democratic side? Do y'all just let these guys toddle on up to the front of the line and y'all don't think it's ever going to spill out? I learned over the weekend that there were people who were preparing huge amounts of Oppo on the right to dump on this guy once he got closer to the primary. They were going to wait until right before the primary. There is video circulating that people claim may or may not be AI of him allegedly with, prostitutes. We don't know if it's real. It might be AI. At this point, you don't believe anything you see. But that was going to drop right before the primary. People start voting in California in May. Democratic Party, what is the plan here? My beef right now is not with the accusers. They have a right to have their stories heard. They have a right to have their day in court, and so does the congressman. This should all play out. Let it play out legally. Let it play out in an ethics investigation that now apparently isn't necessary because he's resigning. He needs to deal with these legal issues. And no offense, it's not that I don't care about his individual life, but what we really care about out here in these streets is that California doesn't go Republican. We put up A9. You cannot become president as a Democrat without California. Do you see how many electoral college votes they have? That number is 54. In the same way that if Republicans ever lost the 40 electoral college votes in Texas, they couldn't win an election. Same goes for Democrats and California. If you let California fall into the hands of somebody who we can't guarantee would run a free and fair election in the state of California, then you know what, Democrats, that would be on you if 2028 is cooked, because you all let Eric Swalwell get to the front of the line without a simple, basic Oppo research vet. I'm in the media. A lot of these Democrats have my phone number. Y'all didn't think maybe y'all should leak to a sister that maybe there were some issues? Damn, Democrats. I don't know what to do anymore. But joining me maybe is some folks who can help me out, because these Democrats I'm scratching my head, y'all. I'm gonna pull out the rest of my little hairs. Joining me now is our wonderful friend, Angela Rye, co-host of Native Land Pod and former Chief General Counsel to the Congressional Black Caucus, and who knows about the travails of congressional staff and all the things that they have to go through in this world that can really get us to understand how these politics are working. Also want to bring on Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey. He is he is a political journalist, author of Kamala, The Motherland and Me. He is a Pepperdine University professor and host of the daily radio program and podcast, A More Perfect Union, and KBLA Talk 1580. He's also a journalist in residence for the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project. Okay, that's his book. We're going to put it in the shop. I am going to start. I'm going to start with you, Angie, because I feel like where Democrats often fail is that they don't share information and they don't communicate. You and I both know a lot of Democrats. We know a lot of Democrats who some we talk to on our podcast and some we don't. But I never got a single call. No one has ever said to me that this was an issue until it was an issue, and then it suddenly is the issue. Is this a failure, in your view, of failure to do Oppo research or something else?
You know, it sounds like the opposition research was done. I think the issue in California is what you began to describe earlier, and it's the imbalance of power. You know, Nancy Pelosi has made great historic strides in Congress, but what people very rarely talk about is how much power she wields and how she wields that power in ways that are in some ways abusive. I know I'm not going to be Nancy Pelosi alum's favorite person right now, but this is indeed the truth. Gavin is her guy. You know, Eric Swalwell is her guy. And I think that we have to wrestle with the fact that when Nancy says something goes in California, it generally goes. He's not going to be the first member of Congress, elected official, somebody that she's endorsed or claimed as her own, where skeletons are buried. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is not something that's new. What I will tell you that I knew, it was widely known on Capitol Hill that Eric Swalwell was a hoe. It was not widely known that he was dealing with staff. I will tell you something else that people don't talk about often. He is not the first nor the last member of Congress that deals with staff.
That's right.
It is widely discussed. There are members of Congress, I'll say this willingly and openly now, because one of these members that says this often is retired, but he used to tell new young men coming in, do not eat where you shit. Sorry, Joy, but that's what they say. The reason why that is a warning that has to be said is because it is widely known that members of Congress deal with their staff.
That's right.
There was one young woman when I worked on the Hill, Joy, and this is far more gossip tea than it is strategy, but I just want to make sure we're my conscience is clean, because I didn't tell you. Again, I didn't know about the assault allegations, but there was a young woman on the Hill that was widely known to deal with multiple members of Congress. And I know that often what we talk about is a power dynamic that exists between an elected official and their staff, and how that's not fair. We talk about it all the time in corporations as well, in entertainment as well. But there's also free will. And you have the right to decide whether or not you're going to deal with people or not. Maybe you don't have the strength or the ability, or you're scared or whatever it is. I want you to find a friend, because what ends up happening is it's not the member of Congress who gets their reputation sullied. It's that young lady that I'm talking about.
That's right.
Right. And I think what is remarkably unfair in this situation is the power dynamics are against these staffers. They didn't feel heard. They knew that if they came out with it, this rising star, they would be to blame for his demise. And I think that you saw some folks who said enough is enough, and they were willing to take on Eric Swalwell, his campaign apparatus, and Nancy Pelosi. And I think that takes courage.
And the thing about it is, I wish this was a new phenomenon. I mean, we can go all the way. Look, I'm like I said, I'm an OG in here. I'm an auntie age. I'm auntie in this bitch at this point. This goes back to the 80s. There was always these stories about members, very senior Congress members, senators, who, as you said, were fishing among their very junior staff. We're talking about 20-somethings, very young people who come to Washington, including, we could talk about Monica Lewinsky. These young people come here and they have access to the most powerful people in the country. And these men have access to them. And in many cases, they're 20-somethings who, as you said, they may not want to say anything or maybe not want to say no because they want to rise. And so here we go, right? And this is in states too. We've heard stories about some governors that have been messing around. We just did a story last week, and it's not necessarily the governor or the governor's spouse who's running around. People are getting access based on who their power is. What advice would you
Kristi
give?
Noem, or Kristi Noem?
That's what I
again,
mean.
it's also
Kristi
not
Noem.
like being a hoochie is not a singular partisan issue. It is a bipartisan, nonpartisan issue. Anybody could be a hoe. Maybe you should slow down. But let me just tell you this last thing. I think that it's important too for us to be aware of how we are discussing these things. Yes. One thing that I've been sitting with all day is like, there are definitely some young people who are preyed upon. There are others that prey upon the people. And I'm not saying this is Eric Swalwell. Hear me. I'm not saying that. But it's interesting that we will call young women who sit in the lobbies of hotels where basketball players are, hip hop artists are, musicians are, we call them groupies. When women or men, because men do it too, do the same thing in politics, it's not called that. And I think we have to wrestle with the way that we describe all of these scenarios. Even those people who are labeled as groupies, there's something missing in their lives where they go and do this. What is happening here? And I think we have to have really honest conversations in our community in particular about what and why that is. I'm sorry, Nee, I was filibustering.
No, absolutely. No, I'm going to get to Nee in 1 second because I think this is very important for us to say as women. These women, these young women and young men who go in as congressional staff, you are at the peak of opportunity. This is the cream of the crop. This is not just anybody gets to be a congressional staffer. These are often the children of powerful families, children of donors, people who are in Monica Lewinsky's family were big time Democratic donors. These are not people who are coming up from these streets. These are not the Epstein victims who were in a trailer that are, just desperate to become a model and thinking that if they, give a massage to Jeffrey Epstein, they can, no. A lot of times these are very affluent young people who come from prominent families. Somebody needs to be briefing these people that you can say no to a congressman. I'm like, who is not empowering these young people to say that, you have reached the point where you can get to work on the Hill? That's a big damn deal. You're not a nobody. You're not from a family that's unknown. Anyway, that's my little auntie lecture. I'm going to leave it there. Nii-Quartelai, I want you to please tell us, Dr. Nee, about the rest of these candidates, because I have expelled all of my passion about the issue of this man. He needs to deal with his issues. All these men that are doing dirty stuff, Tony Gonzalez, deal with your issues. This is not my problem. This is a you problem. This is a personal problem. What I care about, Dr. Nee, is California and California's governorship remaining in the hands of a Democrat. Not because I love the Democrats so much, but because at least I know they won't deport folks and abuse them. Who are the other candidates and who is viable now?
Well, you're not alone in caring about who becomes the next governor of California. There's so much at stake. You mentioned immigration. California is a sanctuary state. I'm beaming in from Los Angeles today. We're a sanctuary city. If Steve Hilton or, heaven forbid, Chad Bianco became governor of California, it would absolutely put all of that in jeopardy and so much more. Right now, what I'm hearing from folks in the field is that there seems to be a lot of folks that are trending towards Tom Steyer. Tom Steyer has already pumped at least $110 million into advertising. And the next nearest candidate is nowhere close. I think Javier Becerra has something like $3.8 million cash on hand. Katie Porter, a little over $3 million. So just to give you a sense of, who has the money.
I don't want to stop you, my friend, but can you just say who these, because people who are not from California, these names are not top of mind for folks.
Sure.
So go through them one by one. Who is Steve Hilton?
Sure. So Steve Hilton, former Fox News host, he is the Republican that got the endorsement of Donald Trump. Chad Bianco, Riverside County Sheriff. This guy is a voter ID guy, basically the SAVE Act that Trump is pushing in Washington. He's trying to push that in California. Tom Steyer, the billionaire activist and environmentalist. He is the Democrat that folks seem to be coalescing around. Former Representative Katie Porter. She used to represent a district in Orange County. She is a contender. As well as former Secretary of Health and Human Services, Javier Becerra, which a lot of folks are given a second look at. He also formerly served as the Attorney General of California and a congressman for a long time. Former LA Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa, San Jose Mayor Matt Mahan, California Superintendent of Public Instruction Tony Thurmond, the only Black individual that is running for governor, and former State Controller Betty Yee. Those are the contenders.
Who's viable and who's vetted?
I think a lot of people believe that Steyer is likely the most viable for a few reasons. He has run for office before. He ran for president at least a couple times. You might remember there was a campaign to impeach Trump that he funded and led. He has led on a number of environmental issues here in the state of California. And so he's a bit more of a known quantity for those reasons. Javier Becerra is viable on paper, but he hasn't really been able to break through. His campaign is really sort of lacking the energy that is needed. And then there are other candidates that, again, are viable on paper, but they have not been able to break through. They don't have the money advantage. And so really, the window is closing for folks like Javier Becerra, for folks like Antonio Villaraigosa and Katie Porter. But what I'm hearing, a lot of folks are trending towards Steyer.
Angie, how do we get people to focus on making a choice, hopefully a choice that's not going to, blow up in our face again, and sort of dealing with some of their imperfections? Let's say it's Steyer. There's a lot of people that are even in the chats right now. I'm looking on the Substack chat and they're like, no to Steyer, he's a billionaire. How do we get people past that? Because this is so important.
Well, they may not get past that, but let me use this as an example because I think it's important to draw a distinction. In an era where we're fighting often about what democracy looks like, right? We are questioning whether or not it's gone forever. People see the fact that California has all of these candidates in the field in an open primary, and they're like, this is what democracy is supposed to be like. When I think about what democracy is supposed to be like, I think about this poster that my dad got on the other side of the ANC election in South Africa where Nelson Mandela won. And I thought it was so incredible. Joy and Nii, they had everything from the Labor Party to the soccer party to the dishwashing party. I mean, like every type of candidate you could think of. And you're like, yes, this is what democracy looks like. That is true until you realize that in California, it's just the top two candidates who advance in that open primary. So while you all are at home and you're hearing Joy, like, what are we going to do? They need to pick a candidate. You're like, well, no, this sounds like democracy. Well, friends, here's the problem. If you can pay to get to the top, or you can ensure that because the Republicans only have two real contenders, there are 50 candidates in this race. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there are 50 candidates on this ballot. These Republicans, they've gotten it down to two candidates. On the Democratic side, we're talking about 5 or 6 people, y'all. So you could very well find yourselves in a position, Callie, where your top 2 vote getters, because they're the only ones that have consolidated it anyway, even though the Republican Party has decided not to endorse either one of them, Hilton or Bianco, the 2 people could advance are the 2 GOP contenders. That is why this is so scary. That is why this doesn't feel like real democracy, because if your top 2 vote getters are of the same ilk, similar party, similar ideology, that's not democracy at all. That gets us kind of back to where we are with this Trump administration. And so what I would say is, the most important thing to identify is if you are opposed to a billionaire, no matter the cause, no matter the reason, no matter, identify why. There is something that I feel like young people tend to do a lot more, but I will honestly tell you, as a Washington State girly myself, we do on the West Coast a lot, is this political ideology purity test, where if people aren't with you 105% of the time, you can't be with them at all. You could vote with them or be aligned with them 75, 80% of the time. Y'all are passing, but you won't vote for them or support them because you disagree with the fact that he got more money than you and your whole block. That's not it. And this is not a Steyer endorsement. I actually would love to see Betty Yee break through. I know her. She's down for Black folks. I like Rabbi Stephen. Like, that's my girl. So I would love to see some other people cut through. To Nee's point, I don't know why these people aren't cutting through. I don't know if it's inability to raise. I don't know if it was Nancy Pelosi and her folks tipping a scale. I would love to see a competitive race, but they ain't got but 5 more minutes. This is on June 2nd.
That's right. And ballots go out in May. I'm gonna give you the final word on this, Nee, because Dr. Nee, because this is the other piece, is that California is the most expensive state to advertise in, period. The media buys are massive. So Steyer, and from what I'm hearing and getting some feedback from some elected officials too, is that he's got the money to be able to run that race. This is like a Kamala Harris situation, 107 days. This is where we are, right? Who has the money to actually make it to the finish line? And by the way, if y'all don't like billionaires, I hate to tell you, J.B. Pritzker is a billionaire too. A lot of people like J.B. Pritzker for president, just letting you know he's a billionaire. JB. Love J.B. But so give us your analysis of, in California, what it actually takes to get to the finish line, to get to be one of the top 2.
So no doubt it takes a healthy media budget, but it also takes grassroots organizing. I mentioned this before, I'll mention it again, that in terms of outreach to Black folks in California, there's been a lot of migration to more affordable areas. And so if you're trying to reach folks in LA County, well, guess what? A lot of folks have moved from LA County to Riverside County. Right. And so you'd have to have a ground game that meets the moment. I think it's going to be really important. Also, endorsements. You mentioned Kamala Harris. There's an Aviterus poll commissioned by the California Democratic Party where it showed that 57% of likely California voters in 2024, guess who they supported? Kamala Harris. Guess who might be really influential at this point in this race if she decides to endorse? Kamala Harris, right? There's talk that Gavin Newsom, that Nancy Pelosi, that Senator Schiff, that they are all considering making an endorsement to try and get the party to rally around a particular set of candidates or a particular candidate. But these are the things that have to happen in order to move this thing along. Otherwise, there is a real scenario that the people of California may have not 1, but 2 Republicans to pick from in November. I don't know if folks want to live in California under a Governor Bianco or a Governor Hilton.
Yeah, Nee, can I ask Joy? Let me ask real quick. Nee, do you know if the 2, I don't want this, y'all, but let's say if they advance, look at Joy's face, like, don't even do this. But if they advance, Joy, if they advance, the 2 Republicans, could they write in? Could there be a write-in candidate? I don't know what the rules are for generals. I'm assuming they're like everybody else's, but could they write? Could folks write? Could Democratic folks write somebody in the fall?
Good question.
Technically, they could write somebody in, but the likelihood of a write-in candidate winning statewide here in California is very, very slim. I know that worked for Lisa Murkowski when she was running in Alaska. I think the terrain's a little bit more tough here in California.
Yeah. Let me just put up really quickly before we let you guys go. Donald Trump is a drag on these candidates. And I think this might be the one sort of, Hail Mary hope for Democrats in this moment. Because I'm sorry, Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff endorsed Eric Swalwell. So I'm not sure that that people are waiting with bated breath for their endorsements. I don't know what the governor will do, but Kamala Harris, I think, would be a great endorser. But Donald Trump is only above water, and it's only plus 74. Normally he's in the 90s with Republicans. He is cooked with everyone else, not just Democrats, but particularly young people, 18 to 29-year-olds. He's underwater in this CBS poll by 40 percentage points. That's the gap is 40. So he's a drag. Is there any chance, I'll let each of you actually answer this question. Is there a chance, I'll start with you, Dr. Nee, is that does he drag down one of the two Republicans? Which is more MAGA? Which of the two is more vulnerable to being associated with that guy?
Well, I mean, I think they're both vulnerable. Chad Bianco, the Riverside County Sheriff, he seemed to be a MAGA favorite, but he didn't get the endorsement of Trump. This is the guy who has seized ballots, 650,000 ballots in Riverside County. Yosemite Sam ain't got nothing on Chad Bianco. And then, when it comes to Steve Hilton, Steve Hilton, presents himself as sort of diet MAGA. He's sort of more palatable, but both of them are down for the same agenda. Let's also keep in mind that California right now has a super majority in the legislature, right? And so should a Republican become the next governor, that's going to be a knockdown, drag out fight. But think about what damage they could do with the agencies that they're charged with running. We're seeing that happen right now, the weaponization of federal agencies by the Trump administration. Imagine if there was a Republican governor in California that decided to weaponize agencies in Donald Trump style.
All I can say is, I'll give you 4 letters that everyone should be terrified. It's DOGE. Look what Donald Trump did with an agency that didn't even exist. And he gutted employment for people of color in the federal government, turned them out into the street and shut down agencies. If you get somebody who's got Donald Trump's same mindset to be the governor of California in a state that is majority minority, where the sort of demographic panic is already kicking in, think what they could do to Black and Brown and AAPI people in that state. They could destroy them, decimate them on behalf of the northern part, California part that's very, very white and rural and conservative. It is devastating. I thank you both for being here. I'm going to give you the last word on this, Angela. What do we do next? Just solve it for me.
Like, help, police.
What do we do?
What I think that we have to do is figure out a way to help people embody their power, that voters understand that the power is completely in their hands, that you have a right to not only vote for whom you want, but understand who you're voting for. You don't need to wait for opposition research to come out. You can do your own research on candidates that is both helpful and not so helpful. Do a pros and cons list, and then get the people on your block to all agree that y'all are supporting the same candidate. I think right now, for the next 14 days, we need to be on a fact-finding mission.
Yes.
Who is safe, who agrees with us on policy, who would implement an agenda that we all support. I think this is a great opportunity. Even though Black folks are small in percentage in California, you're also mighty. And I think it's so important to talk to some of our legislative leaders, some of our elected, current and past elected officials on what you should be looking for in your gubernatorial candidates. Hold these forums, make them come see about you. Dr. Nee said it best earlier. It's not just a TV game. This is a grassroots game. Who is coming to check in with you to make sure they're meeting your needs? Keep your mind open, because the ballot certainly is, and then make a decision quickly.
Amen, amen, amen. We went a little bit long, but these two are so brilliant. I wanted to try to keep them as long as possible. Angela Reid, y'all need to be supporting Native Land Pod. You're already subscribed, I'm sure. But if you're not, what are you thinking? Go please and subscribe to Native Land Pod and support all of the things that they do on that wonderful podcast. And also, Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, get this book, Kamala, the Motherland and Me. And also, if you're in California, you can enjoy him on KBLA Talk 1580. That's from our old radio days. KBLA. Talk 1580. Thank y'all for being here. Appreciate you. Thank you, friends.
You,
all right. Thank you very much. Y'all, are you sufficiently terrified? Because I am. Okay. Let's move on to our next segment. Now, earlier today, before I, donned my fabulous glasses, what we did earlier today, not just trying on glasses, I had a really great conversation about the mess in Iran, Lebanon, and the big changes in Hungary. So I want to play you all the first half of that conversation. We're going to play. Okay, so this is our conversation with the great Jeffrey Sachs. Take a listen. And here they are.
Well, good morning, everybody. And let me say a couple of notes.
Yeah, we won't let you say a couple of notes, JD Vance. So that, of course, is Vice President J.D. Vance, Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and Steve Witkoff, real estate developer friend of the president, failed to come up with a deal while negotiating in Pakistan to try to get the U.S. out of the mess that we made under Bibi Netanyahu's direction, meaning get us out of war with Iran and also apparently Lebanon. Not to worry, though. Donald Trump says that despite the strait remaining under Iran's control with a toll at the top, there will be plenty of oil headed our way to get your gas prices down, or at least that's what Fox's Maria Bartiromo wanted him to say.
Yeah. You referred to a post that hundreds of super tankers are headed to the Gulf of America to buy oil and gas from the U.S. What can you tell us about that, sir?
Well, I can tell you that it used to be called the Gulf of Mexico. That's what I can tell you. Now it's called the Gulf of America because of me. One of my little things that I did, one of my little sidelines. And it's a great honor. People are so happy. You go to Louisiana, you go to Florida, you go to these states, Texas. They're so honored by it. I used to say, why? Why is that the Gulf of Mexico when we have 93% of the frontage? And, it fronts 93% on the United States. I said, I think I'm going to change it to the Gulf of America. What a beautiful name. And I did. And I give a lot of credit to Google because once I filed the papers, I did it. And Google Map, once Google Map changed, did it, it was a done deal. But we had lawsuits, we won everything. And it's now the Gulf of America, which I'm very honored by.
But do you expect super
I must
tankers?
tell you, I was thinking about calling it the Gulf of Trump, and I decided not to do it. I think maybe it was a wise. I think that one maybe wouldn't have worked out. I'm not so sure. You'll have to tell me. But I was thinking about it's going to be called the Gulf of.
Saturday Night Live is no longer sketch comedy. It's basically documentary film. Oh, dementia, how you mock us. So yeah, Maria was not able to get Donald Trump to actually answer her question about the super tankers full of oil. But Donald Trump went on a reverie about the still Gulf of Mexico, which in his addled mind is now called the Gulf of America, which he would have preferred to call the Gulf of Trump. Yeah, there we go. Meanwhile, in Hungary, with the record 70+ turnout and celebrations like these, where young people were gathering in the streets. And I will let you know, I am so sad that you cannot hear this, but this is a Hungarian rapper rapping over a beat by a West Coast hip hop beat, basically by Dr. Dre. So this is a Hungarian rapper rapping over Dr. Dre, which you can't let you hear, but this is a massive, massive crowd that turned out. And basically Hungarians were out in these streets and also at the polls, removing Viktor Orban, ending his 16-year rule. This after J.D. Vance flew to Hungary to rally for Orban, whose illiberal government mirrors what MAGA wants to create here in our country. And then he came back home to defend Orban on the Sunday shows. Here's a little bit of that.
Orban in particular, as you know. I mean, he rewrote the Constitution. He neutered the courts. He has tried to control the media. These are not necessarily conservative principles. So why would you want to mimic him?
Well, look, I'm not endorsing every single thing that Viktor Orban has ever done. I don't know everything he's ever done. What I do think is on the university principle, the idea that taxpayers should have some influence in how their money is spent at these universities, it's a totally reasonable thing. And I do think that he's made some smart decisions there that we could learn from the United States.
Well,
What has happened in the midst of this election campaign is one of the worst examples of foreign election interference that I've ever seen or ever even read about. The bureaucrats in Brussels have tried to destroy the economy of Hungary. They have tried to make Hungary less energy independent. They have tried to drive up costs for Hungarian consumers, and they've done it all because they hate this guy.
I actually had a special guest that asked that I give him a phone call, and we'll see. Let's hope he actually answers. So this is going to be very embarrassing. All right.
I'm sorry, the person you were trying to reach has a voicemail box that has not been set up yet.
Okay. Well, I'm not telling you exactly who to vote for. We have got to get Viktor Orban reelected as Prime Minister of Hungary, don't we?
Yeah, apparently not. Joining us now to discuss both the Hungary shift and the mess in Iran and Lebanon is Jeffrey D. Sachs, world-renowned economist, best-selling author, innovative educator, and global leader in sustainable development, somebody I want to talk to on the show for a long time. Mr. Sachs, thank you so much for being here.
How are you, Joy? Great to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to start by letting you comment on what we've seen in Orban's Hungary. Well, no longer Orban's Hungary. And I mean, I guess maybe it's wishful thinking for me to think that, you know, the idea that this sort of illiberalism that, you know, is mirrored in the Vance philosophy and in the MAGA philosophy, that it failed so decisively in Hungary. Can we take that in any way, in your view, as kind of a signal that maybe that kind of fever is breaking throughout the West? And can we maybe look forward to it breaking here?
Well, one thing we can say for sure is Donald Trump is despised in Europe. That's across Europe. You look at any country at the opinion surveys, Trump's net negative is around 70%, sometimes even worse, meaning that he may have 15% approval and 85% disapproval. The man is despised. I happen to be in Rome today. What he has done in the last day in his extraordinarily obnoxious and ill-advised comments about Pope Leo and in his posting of his image as the Messiah, which he's taken down because he didn't understand the image, he now tells us. People here are shocked. We've heard that all day in Rome. My wife and I, as we meet people on the streets, as we see people in the supermarkets, people are shocked. So Trump is despised. With J.D. Vance going over to recommend a candidate anywhere he goes, he will drive down the vote for any candidate that he endorses at this moment. There is no support whatsoever for what Trump is doing. And I think the same is becoming true in the United States as well. Not only, of course, are his approval ratings sinking, but people, especially this week, have come to understand that the man is actually mentally deranged, not just politically problematic.
Yeah, I think it's very clear that Trump posting himself as the Christ is, at this point, I am unshockable when it comes to Donald Trump. But I think even for a lot of his supporters, his MAGA Christian supporters, they were shocked as well. And you're starting to see a lot of condemnation, which is why he took it down. But of course, he, clearly doesn't know that that's a bad thing to do. And he's been taught poorly, right? That he can kind of do anything and that he is God to his supporters. But, I want to talk about the other thing that definitely seems to have separated Donald Trump from many of the people who even sort of had a desire to support him or wanted to support him for various numbers of reasons. And that is this very upside down relationship with Israel and the war that it does appear. And I wonder if you believe that Bibi Netanyahu is why we're in this war with Iran. Do you agree with that?
Of course, that's true in the so-called proximate sense. Netanyahu talked Trump into this. And by the way, he talked Trump and only Trump into this. We have a lot of insider accounts of the critical meeting where Netanyahu spewed baloney, nonsense, views that were regarded by those in the room as farcical. But Trump, who is not exactly an intelligent man and a discerning man, bought into what no one else in the room bought into, some miracle, another miracle, because he is God's instrument in his own imagination or his own delusion. So he thought, well, let's kill a few dozen people. Nothing wrong with that because he's also a psychopath, but let's kill a few dozen people. Nothing wrong with killing the religious leader. That's just fine. I'm the religious leader, he thinks. Nothing wrong with killing the government. I will choose your next leader, he even told us. But it was Netanyahu who sold him this complete fantasy. Netanyahu told the truth. By the way, he's just a hardened war criminal is what Netanyahu is. But Netanyahu told the truth. He made a post that said, this war with Iran is my dream of 40 years. I have to say, Joy, I stand corrected because for many, many years, I've been saying it's Netanyahu's dream for 30 years because he's been prime minister for 30 years. And ever since he became prime minister, his dream is to pull the United States into a war with Iran. That's been his dream. I apologize. I didn't really know what was going on in his head before he became prime minister, but apparently he had this massive delusion for 10 years before. So in this sense, yes, it's a Netanyahu that absolutely did this. Without Netanyahu, there would be no war with Iran. But of course, Netanyahu played into Trump's own fantasies. Trump thinks he runs the world. He thinks he can kill anyone or remove any leader at will because he is Donald Trump. He thinks he owns their oil. He has said so many times. That's not a joke. That is his absolute obsession. He's obsessed with money more than he is obsessed with power, actually. And when he says, we're going to grab their oil, we're going to make so much money, this is why the Venezuela misadventure and the Iranian disaster are hand in hand. Trump thinks he's cornering the world's energy markets, and he means to do so. And he means to make a lot of money out of this. And he's got his real estate partner and his son-in-law, who are both making business when they go, in there to make sure that the business deals are done. And when Iran said they're going to charge a $2 million per vessel passage to start rebuilding what has been destroyed by the United States and by Israel, Trump said, oh, that's cool. As long as we get a cut of this, I'm good with that. We'll partner with you. He's not kidding. The man's a loon. Come on, everybody. We can see it. He's a loon. And he's very dangerous. And the problem is, it's not a game. You know, every day, the language of game theory, by the way, which is a technical field, but that language infuses our daily lives. He doesn't have the cards. What's he going to do? What's his next play? We're talking about hundreds of thousands of people killed in a genocide in Gaza. We're talking about thousands of people killed already in the bombings in Beirut. We're talking about thousands, maybe 10,000 killed or dying of their wounds in Iran. This is not a game. This is reality. And it's sick and it's dangerous. And it's led by a person of delusion, or if you were to take Trump at his word, a man so ignorant that he can't tell that a picture of him as Jesus Christ is a religious picture. He thought it was a medical picture, he tells us today. Okay, if that's true, get him out of there. He's incapacitated. If it's false, he's a pathological liar. It could be both because he's absolutely both. But this is dangerous, and it's not a game, and it's not a joke, and it's not, look how tough our hero is. We are at a war of no reason with no results other than people dying. And people are dying in large numbers. And I hear it because I have colleagues in these countries, and people are telling me about their father's university being bombed or their mother's friends' buildings being destroyed. I'm hearing this by the hour, this kind of tragedy. And this, for Trump, is a game. He's a psychopath and he's a fool. Sorry, this is very basic. It's not even complicated to say these things. And we have the insider accounts of how all of this went down. And the fact of the matter is, there were two people in the room that believed Netanyahu. That was Trump, and I'm pretty sure Hegseth, who is absolutely bizarre in his own way, or even in his unique way, bizarre. And then the rest were smirking, or, oh my God, or I hope the president doesn't call on me, saying, yes, Mr. President, yes, Mr. President, that's wonderful. We'll support you, because it's a group of sycophants with no institutional process at all. Those who say something to the contrary are simply excluded. It's a room of a handful of sycophants. Nobody tells the truth in that room. So this is what happened. And Netanyahu is an indicted war criminal who has earned every bit of that distinction. And he's relentless in trying to create the so-called Greater Israel, which is destroying the Middle East and destroying his own country, by the way. I call it Israel's suicide, because the viciousness of it, the fascism of it, is so blatant, so disgusting. It's put the whole Middle East in flames. But we have a crazy president who says, sure, I'll sign on, no problem, it's great. And if they blockade the strait, I'll blockade the strait on their blockade. I'll raise your blockade, one blockade. This is nobody in the whole world can understand what the hell did you just do? Are you kidding? They have a blockade, so you put on a blockade. That solves the problem, Mr. President. Genius.
Professor Sachs, I mean, the thing that you've spoken my entire soul. Thank you very much for saying everything that I believe as well. But I feel like we talk about Donald Trump as a psychopath, but there are two psychopaths in this room, because Bibi Netanyahu, as you just said, you went right where I wanted to go next, is equally, I've been watching him since he was a guest on Nightline. He's been a psychopath the whole time. And yes, I dreaded the day he would become Prime Minister of Israel. He's insane. He's also trying to survive just like Trump, because he's a criminal. He's under indictment, he and his wife, for corruption. And he has promised people even crazier than him on his right that they would get this greater Israel. Over the last couple of days, I've been in a wormhole. I went back and I reread the Balfour Declaration. Jason he can put it up.
Yeah.
This was in 1917. It was a letter written to Mr. Rothschild, to Lord Rothschild, who was a big supporter of the Zionist cause, which is a political cause in Europe. And it promises, it gives support for the idea from the crown of creating a home inside of the Holy Land for Jewish, European Jews, but that would also respect the rights of the indigenous Arabs in their midst. Fast forward to today, you have the more 1931 Eretz Israel vision and dream, which you can see on the far left of the screen, which didn't even exist a year before Israel was created. In the middle is a National Geographic article from 1947 in which that Balfour Declaration plan is sort of sketched out. You can see the dark areas were supposed to be for the Palestinians to create a Palestinian state. This was sort of an archive, they were doing this sort of archival and sort of looking at finding the sort of history and roots of the area. But these people genuinely believe on the right, this idea that people like Ben-Gvir and Smotrich genuinely believe that they're going to take parts of Iraq, Turkey, Syria, Jordan, and even Egypt and Saudi Arabia, that they are going to annex these countries' territory by force, and that to do that, all they need is to take down Iran, which is their biggest opponent, the strongest opponent. And once Iran is a failed state, they can have it. And the last thing, before I let you back in to comment on it, this is something that happened just over the last week. This is Itamar Ben-Gvir, who's part of the government there. He's part of the cabinet there. At the Al-Aqsa Mosque, if you put a B7, Jason, literally, you can see a Muslim woman in the front of your screen storming into the Al-Aqsa Mosque and doing these Talmudic prayers in front of it. This is where we are. The Israeli right, they celebrated passing a law, a death penalty law that only applies to Palestinians. This is B8, Jason. We played it before. Literally, Itamar Ben-Gvir. Here they are toasting with gold noose pins on, celebrating the ability to now put Palestinians only to death, not Israelis, only Palestinians. Those are the psychopaths effectively directing our foreign policy at this moment. And that scares me more than almost anything, because I have no idea what else Bibi would demand that Trump do, because I know Trump would do it.
Well, that history is very helpful, and I can add a few points to it. First, when Britain issued this Balfour Declaration, a couple of points are interesting. First, this was not British land to give away or to promise to anybody. This was Ottoman territory in the middle of World War I. And Britain, being the ruthless empire that it was, and having taught the American empire all that it knows, promised the same land 3 times over, actually. Once was in this Balfour Declaration. Another time was to the Arabs. And those who remember the movie from many decades ago, Lawrence of Arabia,
yes,
that's the story of the British promising this land of the Eastern Mediterranean, the Levant area, to the Arabs if they fight on the side of the British in World War I. And then they cheated the Arabs afterwards. And the third was a promise made to the French in what's called the Sykes-Picot Treaty. So first, the whole thing was perfidious, and it wasn't theirs to give away. The second thing that is interesting is that there was one Jewish person in the British cabinet in 1917. He wrote a letter to the prime minister protesting the Balfour Declaration. He said, "I'm British. I don't want Judaism to be considered a nationality. It's my religion, but I'm British. This is very dangerous." So this is a second point. Third point, and very quickly, and I'm burdened by time, I'm afraid, is that this Zionism has many strands that should be unpacked. One of them is called Christian Zionism, which is a view expressed by our U.S. ambassador, that extreme big map. Huckabee, our ambassador to Israel, said, yes, Israel should have all of that, because in his unbelievably theologically ignorant mind, he reads a verse of Genesis 15 and he says, oh, that's all Israel's today. Okay, we can't go into all the theological details, but it is mind-boggling. And a lot of Trump's voters have another idea which is related, which is that the end of the world is nigh. And so all of these wars, this is okay. This is Armageddon coming. Well, no, thank you, please. Not the end of the world, please. No, thank you. But there is this additional view. And then those two that you showed. Well, I'll say first Netanyahu. Netanyahu has a completely twisted mind. He's part evil politician, so he's just power hungry. And we could say a lot about that. But he's also twisted, and for a lot of reasons that are worth another long discussion. But he says, everyone is against us. We have to kill before we are killed. That's the view of the world. We will kill anyone. And so he is absolutely a pathological mass murderer, because he has a view. They're going to kill us. We kill them first. Okay. Then there are these other two that you showed, Ben-Gvir and Smotrich. That's another piece of this. They are
fanatics.
It's terrible to say, but they even, one of their parties is Jewish power. It's a Jewish supremacism.
Yeah.
It's so fundamentally different from normal Judaism before all of this horror that I even hate to say this, because what these people represent has nothing to do with the religion, but they have the view. This is ours. We'll take whatever we want. So this is a madness, this state of Israel right now. It is a madness. It's a madness of fear, of trauma, of hatred, of supremacy, of exclusion. It's a madness. I know the place well for more than 50 years. It's gone mad, led by madmen. We have been trapped by this, by our own devices, because it's also true of earlier presidents. But Trump is the most pathetic of all because of all the other debilities that we've talked about. He doesn't know what he's doing. He has no self-control. He has no impulse control. He understands nothing. So he goes along with this madness. Most presidents went along with it with a little bit of pushback. Trump jumps and pushes us entirely into this craziness. We need one thing for peace. Israel, you go back and you live within your own borders of the 4th of June, 1967. Stop bothering the rest of the world. And there's going to be a Palestinian state, and that's just how it's going to be. And stop your craziness. Stop your murder. Stop your wars. Stop your hatred. Stop your genocide. Stop your ethnic cleansing. Go back to your borders, and there's going to be a state of Palestine next door, and we're all going to live with it, and especially you're going to live with it in peace, because this is over the disaster that you've been on for 30 years. It's not hard, Joy. That's international law. Almost the entire world supports this. The U.S. has given Israel protection until this moment. That has gotten us into a war that threatens World War III by a president who thinks he's the Messiah. We have a big, big problem. And I have a time constraint. I apologize.
It is all good. Jeffrey Sachs, you are so great. I am going to hope that we can get you back again sometime.
Anytime.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Enjoy Rome. It's one of my favorite places. And God bless you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Much appreciated. Thank you. Jeffrey Sachs, one of the best out there. So Jeffrey Sachs, everybody, sorry about that. We cut a little bit at the end, but yes, we were going to just show you a video that showed some of the people that have died as a result of this madness.
Do you want to see the rest of it?
No, I think we're good. I was just going to show them that video because it makes it more human. Do you have, if you have that?
I could load it up again if you want me to.
Oh, just that clip?
Just a video while you're talking, Oprah.
Yeah, just that video that's at the end. Yeah, just that clip at the end.
Mm-hmm. No, go ahead and talk. I'll bring it up.
Yeah, because the reality is that people forget. All I said at the end of that clip was that people forget that when these leaders, quote unquote, make these decisions, it's that Al Jazeera clip, make these decisions about what they're going to do with other people's lives. They forget that they're human beings that are impacted. So that's all we were going to say. It's okay, Jason. If you don't have it, it's fine. We can leave it alone. I want to, before we get to anything else, thank you all. Welcome to hour 2 of the Joy Reid Show. I want to take a quick break before we move on any further. That's all I was going to say, is that there are human beings who die, like real people with real faces and families and lives. And that's what's impacted when you start wars. It's a game to Trump, but it's not a game to the people who are under the bombs. Let's take a quick break and welcome a brand new sponsor. Super excited about it. This episode of the Joy Reid Show is brought to you by our new friends at HexClad.
If you want the performance of stainless steel, the versatility of cast iron, and the convenience of non-stick, then you want HexClad.
So this weekend I did something that was like actually really one of my favorite forms of relaxation. I cleaned the kitchen pantry. I promise you, I cleaned the kitchen pantry, took out all the old stuff and put the new stuff in. So it was so therapeutic, right? And since it is officially spring, the best reset is to reset your kitchen, right? Because that's where you get your food. That's what feeds you. And one of the best ways to do that is to not just refresh your physical kitchen, what you look at, but also refresh the implements and the items that you're using to actually feed yourself. And that is where HexClad comes in. HexClad combines the performance of stainless steel with the convenience of nonstick, so you do not have to choose. You get incredible heat control, a proper sear, and easy cleanup every time. No more food like sticking and burning and scrubbing forever after dinner. Most cookware makes you actually compromise, but non-stick will wear out really fast and scratch really easily. Stainless steel performs beautifully, but cleaning it up can be a nightmare. HexClad gives you both performance and convenience all at the same time. HexClad pans are not just gleamy, gorgeous, non-stick and beautiful. They are oven safe up to 900 degrees Fahrenheit. That's for all of you people with the African hands. You know you can touch the heat, but not everybody can. There's stainless steel handles that make it so that you're not like grabbing a scorching hot pan every time that you cook. And with over 1 million customers and over 50,000 5-star reviews, the secret is out. There's a reason Gordon Ramsay, who you just saw, uses HexClad at home and in his restaurants. And he is the toughest critic on the planet, as you know. And HexClad products, they all come with a lifetime guarantee. It's literally the last set of pots and pans that you will ever have to buy. And you give up those ones you got at Walmart that you inherited from your family. You need to let them go. And for those of us who cannot let go of the metal utensils, HexClad pans are also metal utensils safe, so you do not have to baby them or switch tools while you're cooking. So yes, spring is the perfect time to upgrade your kitchen with cookware that actually works as hard as you do. And for a limited time, our listeners can get 10% off with our exclusive link. Just head to hexclad.com/joy. That's HEXCLAD.com/joy. And support our show. Check them out. hexclad.com/joy. Make sure you let them know that we sent you and get that little 10% off by using that code. Thank you very much. We appreciate you. And thank you for HexClad for sponsoring this show. Welcome to the family. So, yes, because, and it is not just HexClad. We are actually in a bounty of advertisements on today. Let me try to find our second one. Because we are sponsored not just by one, but by two incredible advertisers. Let me find it. I'm not finding it, Jason. I'm not finding it. We're also sponsored by our friends at fastgrowingtrees.com. My bad. Our friends at fastgrowingtrees.com are one of our OG sponsors that have been with us for a very, very, very long time. And they are like one of our faves because they deliver beauty that you can have outside your home or inside your home. Either way, you can have a beautiful home full of gorgeous trees that actually arrive to your door with no problems, easy delivery. And they also have amazing experts that can help you to get the best out of your purchase to make sure that your purchases are gorgeous. We ordered these gorgeous trees that are going to bloom with beautiful red, that are going to be fabulous as soon as they grow. And the great thing about it is they arrived already 5 feet tall. So now they're already blooming, which is fabulous. So we can make our little sanctuary, our little park in the backyard without having to wait years and years and years for them to grow. So right now, fastgrowingtrees.com has great deals on spring planting essentials, up to half off on select plants. And listeners to our show will get 20% off their first purchase when using the code JOY at checkout. That's an additional 20% off better plants and better growing at fastgrowingtrees.com. Just use the code JOY at checkout, fastgrowingtrees.com/joy. Now it's the perfect time to plant. It is spring, so let's grow together. Use JOY to save today. Offers valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. Okay, so I've gotten that business taken care of. We appreciate our sponsors, and hopefully you guys do too. All right, so now because we've declared this to be a Moral Monday, even though it's not the first Monday of the month, we decided we're going to make this our Moral Monday. But I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the terms, right, that we throw around a lot in religious circles, but I think which people tend to sort of confuse and mix up when they use them, right? And especially in this time when we're dealing with white Christian nationalism, I think we have to kind of think about them, even if you're not religious, because when Christian nationalists are running your country, you need to understand what these things are. So here are the terms: heresy, sacrilege, blasphemy, and apostasy. And these terms are thrown around a lot, but let me just give you a sort of simple explanation of what they are. There's a site called blogos.com that provided these helpful definitions. All right. So heresy is adherence to a religious opinion that is contrary to the dogma of the faith, right? So if the faith says one thing and you say another thing, you simply, even if by accident, you're going against the dogma. That is heresy. Next, you have sacrilege. Sacrilege, per this site, blogos.com, sacrilege is disrespect of something sacred. Its literal definition is the crime of stealing what is consecrated by God. So in modern times, Blogos writes, we would simply say that it is stealing the honor of God. So it's like sacrilegious to needlessly deface a Bible, let's say, to like call it a Trump Bible and put Trump content in it. That is sacrilegious, right? Because you are taking something sacred and you are dishonoring it. Next up is blasphemy, which is basically sacrilege that you're speaking out of your mouth. And apparently there are two ways to blaspheme God. The first is to blame God for evil or to deny God credit for good. So Job's wife comes to mind on that score. But it's also when people demand to know why God has withheld some blessing or done something which you sort of presume is out of God spiting you. That is actually blasphemy. And in fact, blasphemy is the fuel for what they call idolatry, because it can lead you to idol worship because you feel like God, quote unquote, if you believe in God, is failing you. And so you turn to an idol. This is actually what the Pharisees, the Jewish Pharisees, accused Jesus of. They accused him of blasphemy, saying that he claimed to be God. That's what they accused him of. And in the Old Testament, blasphemy was actually punishable by being stoned to death. And in the New Testament, blasphemy against the Holy Spirit is the one unforgivable sin. And then the last one is apostasy, which is similar to heresy, but actually stronger and all-encompassing. Instead of apostasy meaning just rejecting a particular idea from an established school of thought, it is the wholehearted rejection of the entire philosophy. Let me quote blogos.com again. In Christian terms, apostasy is the deliberate rejection of the core tenets of the faith. The apostate knows and understands the gospel and retains the outward appearance of a believer, but he has rejected Christ's authority and disowned his name. They have the appearance of godliness, but they have essentially warped the power of the faith. Now, I've argued many times that of all the things that I just read, Donald Trump is not just a blasphemous, heretical, and diabolical evil man who is guilty of constant sacrilege. I have argued and said on this show many times that he and this fake MAGA Christian sect are actually apostates. So that's when you understand why I call them apostates. They know what Christianity is. He might not that much, but he knows the basics of it. They know the precepts of it. And they're not just accidentally twisting the Christian faith. They are doing it on purpose for demonic purposes. That is apostasy. And which brings me to Pete Hegseth. And I want to show you just some examples of what I would consider apostasy. This is Pete Hegseth literally praying for merciless death in Iran and using Old Testament scriptures to do it.
I meant to read a prayer, which I'm going to read today, and it was sent to me by the chaplain who oversaw the Maduro raid. So this was the prayer that he prayed before that mission with those great Americans who conducted that mission. And he wanted to share it with me, and I'd like to share it with the group today. First, a reading from the book of Psalms, chapter 18, verses 37 to 42. King David writes, I pursued my enemies and overtook them, and did not turn back till they were consumed. I thrust them through so that they were not able to rise. They fell under my feet. For you equipped me with strength for the battle. You made those who rise against me sink under me. You made my enemies turn their backs to me, and those who hated me I destroyed. They cried for help, but there was none to save. They cried to the Lord, but he did not answer them. I beat them fine as dust before the wind. I cast them out like the mire of the streets. And then he prayed this prayer, the chaplain. And we pray it with him this morning. Almighty God, who trains our hands for war and our fingers for battle, you who stirred the nations from the north against Babylon of old, making her land a desolation where none dwell. Behold now the wicked who rise against your justice and the peace of the righteous. Snap the rod of the oppressor, frustrate the wicked plans, and break the teeth of the ungodly. By the blast of your anger, let the evil perish. Let their bulls go down to slaughter, for their day has come, the time of their punishment. Pour out your wrath upon those who plot vain things, and blow them away like chaff before the wind. Grant this task force clear and righteous targets for violence. Surround them as a shield, protect the innocent and blameless in their midst. Make their arrows like those of a skilled warrior who returned not empty-handed. Let every round find its mark against the enemies of righteousness and our great nation. Give them wisdom in every decision, endurance for the trial ahead, unbreakable unity, and overwhelming violence of action against those who deserve no mercy.
Apostasy. Appearing as a Christian, reading from the Christian text, but speaking pure violence and evil. And if that isn't bad enough, Jason, let's skip to C4 if we could. This is what Donald Trump did on Orthodox Easter. So he posted his previous insane post where he invoked Allah and said he was going to wipe out the civilization of Iran on Easter, on Christian Easter. And this is on Orthodox Easter. He posted this absolutely insane post, depicting himself as Jesus in the garb that is traditionally shown on Jesus in photos. And you can see an American flag behind him, a Statue of Liberty, some eagles and jets, a bunch of white folks around him, women and men. And then in the air, what sure looked to me like demons. The one in the middle, and I don't know what that is if not demonic. Demonic. Let me just quickly let you know that Donald Trump, once he got even MAGA people horrified, as you heard Jeffrey Sachs say in Rome, they were absolutely shocked. Even some MAGA people said this was abominable. You have to take this down. He took it down, and then he literally told. Let me read this to you. This is from the New York Times. He said, "No, it's nothing I'm going to put up." He said that he thought he was being depicted as a physician. He thought it was me as a doctor, he said, while grabbing 2 bags of McDonald's food and walking in the Oval Office. While holding his Mickey D's, he said, "Oh, I thought that was me being depicted as a doctor. Only the fake news would come up with saying that I was trying to look like I was Jesus." Let's bring on our guest, Father Michael Pfleger of the Great San Sabina Church. And I'm going to let you respond to that while we wait for Bishop Barber, who's running a bit behind. But Father Pfleger, it is so great to see you. I want to let you respond to Donald Trump's post of himself as what he appears to be making himself to look like Jesus, maybe raising someone from the dead. I don't know what he's supposed to be doing.
Well, if he's raising anything from the dead, I hope it's the Epstein files. But I think that I think he's unraveling, Joy. I think he's just imploding, and he's losing it. And I think, he wasn't satisfied with trying to, make himself a king. Now he wants to be God. And I think he has such an inflated perception of himself. And he has so many people around him that continue to feed this narcissism and this craziness. I mean, he's got these Paula Wright and Franklin Graham hustlers that are out there constantly referring to him like Jesus. So why are we surprised that he would put something like this on? I mean, I think this is just the next step for him.
I agree. And I think sometimes, look, for those who are believers, God has excellent timing. If you believe in God, you'll know that the timing is pristine. Because in this moment, I like the previous Pope. You and I texted about this. I really did like the previous Pope. But Pope Leo, let me tell you, this Creole Pope, he has become my favorite, even though I did like his predecessor. Let me play a little bit of what he said over the weekend, because this dude is from Chicago. So he lays it bare. He don't play around. He's from New Orleans and Chicago. So he's like, I don't have time to play with you. Here is the Pope, Jason. This is C5 when you get a chance. This is C5 over the weekend. This is our Pope, Pope Leo XIV.
Enough of the idolatry of self and money. Enough of the display of power. Enough of war. True strength is shown in serving life. With evangelical simplicity, St. John the 23rd once wrote, "The benefits of peace will be felt everywhere, by individuals, by families, by nations, by the whole human race."
If you told me that was your cousin or brother, Father Pfleger, I would be like, that tracks, because he is Chicago like you are Chicago, my friend. I mean, he is a wonderful man. I won't even say a bad man, but in a good way. I really love him. Let me let you respond to him.
Well, you know what? I think that number one, he's so calm and so posed, and he thinks things through and reflective, but he shoots it straight. I think that this president is underestimated, this Southside Creole Pope. And he's a Sox fan, which means he has great tenacity and endurance, because if you can still be a Sox fan at this day and age, you can stand through anything. But I think that, and when he said, on the plane going to Algeria, I think he said, I'm not afraid of this administration. And I think it's very clear. But let me say one last thing. And I see my good friend, Reverend Barber there. Yes. Bless you, man.
Bless you, brother.
I think one thing that I love of what's happening right now is the Pope is not speaking as a political figure or as a politician. What he is doing is quoting the scriptures. And he is exposing these hustlers like Paula White and Franklin Graham and all the rest of them, who have been hijacking the scriptures to pump this guy up and justify all their evil their wickedness that they've been doing. And he's saying, okay, now the Pope is saying, now let me tell you what the scriptures really say. Mm-hmm. And let me just meet you with the scripture. That's not my words. It's not my politics. It's not my policy. I'm just going to hit you with the scriptures. Blessed are the peacemakers. They're children of God. Blessed are the meek. And I mean, he is just coming at him with something. So you want to disagree with these statements. Now you're disagreeing with Jesus himself. And so careful.
Amen. Yeah. Amen. Amen. Let me ask you to lower your camera just a little bit, Bishop Barber. To tilt me down just a little bit so we can get you on camera. Excellent. I want to give you an opportunity. Welcome, Bishop Barber. And of course, it's Moral Monday, so we always share that with you, my good friend. And I love having the two of you on together. This is sort of a dream booking for Moral Monday. But I want to let you respond to Donald Trump's, in my view, demonic post. Jason, if you wouldn't mind putting it back, I think it's C5 of no, not C5. I think it's C4 of Donald Trump. There it is. I see this as absolutely demonic. Bishop, what do you think?
Well, we've been saying all day at this conference that people have been speaking to it. You know, there were Moral Monday people in front of the White House today. I got a meeting in about 20 minutes with states all over. We started a few weeks ago because the way this went to war was, if you will, blasphemous and demonic. It's unholy. War itself is unholy. He's done so much that's counter, that's anti the Christ. That this just becomes the last thing that he's doing, because in a real sense with Donald Trump, what you have and MAGA is a war on divinity. With him and religious nationalism, they are literally, Joy, trying to challenge. For instance, we believe some things are inalienable. They're from the Creator. They're trying to say, no, we are now the Creator. And if we get voted and we get elected in, we can change what civilization lives. We can decide that. We can decide what babies live, what babies have citizenship right, what people have health care. When you begin to act like that, it's like you're trying to replace God and God's principles. And so I think it's blasphemous. It's one of the latest blasphemous things that he's done. But if you really look at it, he's got the planes bombing that would never be in a picture, quote unquote, with the disciple of Jesus. He's got the flag, not the cross, right? I've been examining what he's really saying. He's saying, look who I am. And you know, remember the other day when Donald Trump tweeted, he said, if for instance, if Iran did do such a thing, all hell would rain, not R-A-I-N.
Yeah, we have it, the C8,
right.
R-E-I-G-N. Put it up if you could, Jason, C8, right. Yes, sir.
And it made me step back and say, wait a minute now, is this a Freudian slip or is this intentional? If you say hell's gonna rain, the only way you can make hell rain, you're an emissary of hell. You think you are. You think you're something greater than. And that's what is dangerous about this moment. And with the Pope, what I love about the Pope is, as my friend said, not only is he challenging those who've hijacked the gospel, he's challenging those who've never used the gospel to support their position. They just say we're Christian nationalism. If you ever ask them, well, where did Jesus say this? They can't bring a scripture up anywhere. They never do. They just hijack the name, like my good friend Pfleger, like Bar Jesus did in Acts, when he borrowed Jesus' name, but he never talked like Jesus talked. So we're in a war, I think, on divinity itself. A group of folk trying to replace our notion of God, our notion of righteousness, our notion of ultimate inalienable rights, and that's why the cure is to really lift up the word of God. But in addition to that, Joe, and I'll say this and stop, we have to wrestle with how we got here. Now, I love the fact that people are talking about Pope Leo today, but we didn't have this conversation we should have when Pope Francis said neoliberalism and trickle-down economics were evil.
That's right.
See,
You're right.
You see, we have a moment now with this opening to bring a lot of things forward and not just get caught in this moment when the Pope says he's not afraid because he's standing on a tradition. It's not just him individually. He's standing on a tradition. He's standing on what we would call the apostles' doctrine, sound doctrine. And when you stand in that place, you don't have to be afraid, right? Because you're not just speaking, as he says, as a politician or your own opinion. He's looking at the entire trajectory of the scriptures and traditions. Yes, it's been flawed at times, but on this question of who's God, what justice looks like, what love looks like, blessed are the peacemaker, he can stand firm-footed and say to Franklin Graham and all of his followers, for you to simply pump this man up and say he is sent by God is also blasphemous.
Yes, it is. I mean,
Right.
and the reality is, it's not just the hell will reign. And when you said
Right.
this to me over the weekend, Bishop, it was like an aha moment for me. This man really literally wrote the words hell will reign. Just if you could see it one more time. He wrote the words hell will reign. It's almost like he's winking and nodding at the
Yeah.
demonic in his
Right.
post. Hell will REIGN. Reign means rule. He also said civilization will die. He said civilization will die tonight. That's C9, where he said that he can order the end of history, that he can wipe a civilization, an ancient civilization that goes back to Jesus' time, off the map. And then you have this thing about Father Pfleger. This is a man who didn't touch the Bible when he was sworn in as
Right.
president.
Right.
He did not put his hand on the Bible. Now you can say that was maybe an oversight, but this was enough that CBS News even noticed it, that major media even noticed it, that he didn't touch it. And so I wonder sometimes if we are looking at the modern day Baal, that his supporters are worshiping an orange God because they can see him, Father Pfleger, because they don't feel confident that the invisible God will give them what they want, which is pain for their enemies, death for their enemies, expulsion, incarceration. They don't want something good. They want to harm people, and they think he'll do it.
Yeah, I think they want this Rambo God that punishes and that beats up, and that anybody that doesn't think and act like them, they want to bully and they want vengeance on them. And that's a God that they have unleashed. I think really that, Trump would be calling this Jesus who feeds the poor and cares for the disenfranchised and cares for the forgotten. I believe that Trump, he at some point called Jesus a loser. Because he doesn't
Right.
agree with this evil mentality of vengeance and pain and suffering that should be inflicted on anybody that doesn't think, act, and like. And I think he really exposed himself today, Joy and Bishop, on the plane when they were asking him about this Pope, and he said, "Well, I don't like anybody that criticizes the president." That is the key.
That's the
He
key
does
right
not
there.
like anybody that criticizes him. And then criticize him with the scriptures. Oh my God, he can't take that. And I'm sure he called up Paula and Franklin and all the other hustlers and said, "Hey, give me something to come back at." And they said, "Well, we really can't find anything
to come back.
that goes against this. You're on your own."
Yeah, they got sense enough not to take on Jesus if he doesn't. Yeah, I mean, they have sense enough not to take on.
But some of
God.
them don't have the sense to do it, Bishop Barber. There's a guy named Joe Rigney, who I always remind people on this show, founded that church where Don Lemon and Georgia Fort got arrested. He decided to go on Twitter, and he posted a link to an article he wrote in which he wrestled with the notion of whether Donald Trump's bizarre and violent posts might be some sort of Jesus strategery, right? Some sort of godlike strategery, compared him to Solomon in the Bible, and said that there could be some biblical justification for calling for the end of civilization in Iran. So you have people who call themselves theologians who are trying to dig up a justification.
Well, they're Theo something. I don't know if I call it Logian. That's a qualifier that they don't get to have. Father Pfleger is a theologian. I'm a theologian. They are Theo something. But again, what that shows is this war on divinity. They're trying to change the category and the notions that all three religions honor about certain basic things about where God stands. And if you choose to stand otherwise, you just say, I don't care what God says, but you don't try to change it. That's what we have going on. Now, remember, before all of this, it was reported that they called the ambassador of the Vatican into the Pentagon.
Yes.
Saying, we got all this military might. You better bow to us. Now, I'm going to say this, and Father Pfleger is going to get to hollering in a minute. That's nothing but Daniel 3.
Yeah.
That's Daniel chapter 3. That's Daniel chapter 3, when you have the king who says, I'm going to create an image. The imago Dei is not enough, the image of God. I'm going to create another image of God myself. And you bow to that. See, that's where you have the Babylonian understanding of creation coming into contradiction with the Genesis understanding and what it has to do is it even shifts humanity. and who is the ultimate image of humanity. These followers want Trump to be the image of humanity, the ultimate, the one you look to, right? The one who is the ultimate. If he's not God, he's the ultimate creation of God, and the rest of us should follow. This is some dangerous stuff, and it's not just what he's saying. See, when you go here, you can also then say, we don't have money for daycare. We don't have money for health care. We don't have money for living wages because we have to bomb people. We have to go to war. In other words, because we really worship the God of war. The God of war. And part of what has to happen, I preached last night, that even with it just being bigger than Trump, America is suffering now from having so many opportunities to take the welcome mat, our Constitution, which says establish justice, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and fill up the American House with policies that complete those words, those creeds. And over the years, we didn't do it. Now, Jesus says that when you have a house and you don't fill it up with what ought to be in the house, justice, health care, living wages, lifting the poor, caring for the least of these, then an impure spirits, not an impure spirit, impure spirits roam around looking for somewhere to abode. And if they find the house empty, they come in. And so every time we have pushed voting rights in the House and then taken them out. See, in 2013, when we removed voting rights from the furniture of the House, we opened the door. Come here, sinners, the movie Sinners. We opened the door and invited this in. And it doesn't take but a crack. All to get it in, all you got to get this in, all it took was for 19 million people not to vote. All it took was for 90 million people to stay home, and the Congress gets put in place only by 7,000 votes. All it took was 1.2% of the vote. All it took was for numbers of black men, Latino men to vote for this crazy over some kind of machoism. All it took, Joy, was for that to happen, and the impure spirits have now taken the House. And the work of Bishop, I almost said Bishop, Pope, I almost said Pope Pfleger, Priest Pfleger, Father Pfleger, and myself and Pope Leo is now we have to sweep the house. And I mean a deep cleaning. This is representing to us, because we can't get locked in that it's just Trump. It is an impure spirit.
That's right.
Right? That's got in the house.
That's right.
It's been in the house a little bit, but every time we take a step forward and 3 steps back, you should have heard Nancy McClain talk today at our conference, and Pam Garrison, and them talking about this 3 steps forward, 2 steps forward, and not 2 steps backwards, 3 steps backwards.
Yeah.
And every time you take furniture out, you take healthcare out, you end the Affordable Care Act, you end voting right, you leave a crack in the door, and the impure spirit comes in, and it does not want to leave. So that's why it's talking about maybe I could serve a 3rd term, or let me see. That impure spirit only wants to do one thing. That's rule and take God, if you will, off the throne and replace themselves with God.
Lord have mercy.
Yes,
Lord have mercy. This is the Lord have mercy. I have to sit with that for a moment. Father Pfleger, this is what, I was recently listening to one of the things that you said. This is what you call the state of emergency, right? That Trump claimed there was a state of emergency in Chicago, but you said that's it. That's the state of emergency. Hunger, fear, the lack is the state of emergency. I'm going to go ahead and give you the final word on this, Father Pfleger, and if you want to say anything else to defend your Pope.
Well,
our Pope.
Well, when we, in February, right after he was set into office, is when we turned the flag upside down and raised it and said it is a state of emergency here and in America. And I was all these people tell me I'm anti-patriotic and I'm all these. They call me all these names. And I wonder, here we are a year afterwards, and say, so what do you think about that now? Would you think we're in emergency now? But Joe, we also have, when we talk about this demon, and you go back to the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible, the Oval Office is the new golden calf. And that's what he has built, the new golden calf. And he said he's not going to destroy it. He's tried to get these hustlers to support him. And I think he does. I really do believe he wants himself to be looked on as God.
That's right.
I think he believes that with all his heart. But we also must confront that anybody who still stands in support of him, and I'm not talking about these clowns in his administration and the demons that he surrounded himself. I'm talking about anybody in the streets of America that still stand with him at this point. You now have connected yourself to this demon. So don't call yourself a Christian, a Muslim, or a Jew, because as the bishop meant out, he has now affronted all the holy books at their base is the care for people and the respect of people and the feeding of the hungry and the caring for the homeless. He has now come after each and every single one of our basic foundational beliefs. And so everybody that is still standing with him, you have now connected yourself to this demon. And now you stand in that shadow and you're going to have to pay those consequences. Last thing I would say is that the good news out of all of this is that the Pope and I think others, and I was on a conference call with 50 or 60 other religious leaders earlier today. I was the only Catholic on them, but everyone said, we've got to rise up, we got to say more, we got to stand up, we got to get with the Pope. And I think he is waking a sleeping giant in the faith community that has been silent way too long. They have been silent, and that's why the Paulas and the Franklins have been able to become this voice, and the media has given them that platform.
That's right.
And now the media must be held. Now they have to cover a different platform of a man who's saying, I'm not afraid of him, and what he's doing is evil and is wrong. So I think it's raising up and awakening this giant. Remember, Leo is referred to as a lion, and the lion is waking. And I think is waking up the faith communities. And out of this, I think it can birth the new rising of the faith communities of all the faiths to stand up strong.
I mean, it's so bad that you've had this same apostasy inside of the Christian faith. Bibi Netanyahu has done to the Jewish faith to turn it into a city of death, this state of death, that the whole purpose of Israel is to mete out death and to mete out theft, to steal land, to commit not one, but now 2 genocides, and now on to the genocide in Lebanon, killing moms, women, children, bombing homes, bombing churches, bombing schools. He himself has twisted, and he constantly quotes the Bible to try to justify. He doesn't say the Torah, he says the Bible, and he tries to trigger these religious fake Christian nationalists in this country to say, yes, that is what Judaism and Christianity is. He's twisted Judaism to the point where regular Jewish folk who aren't doing nothing, that are, in Los Angeles or somewhere catching strays, because they're getting associated with the evil that Bibi Netanyahu and his friends are meeting. That is evil what they're doing. And so we've seen all 3 religions twisted. Go ahead, Bishop Barber.
Can I say one thing? We came up with a new word. I've been struggling with Christian nationalism. So one of the professors said we need to call it Christianess. In other words, it's an attempt by people to call something what it's not. That's one thing. Number 2 is I do worry, though, about this moment for the church and religious leaders. And I tell you what, see, I look at Pfleger. He ain't never stopped. Many of us have never stopped. People say the church hasn't been out there. Oh, yes, we have. The corporate media has maybe chosen not to talk about it. You have. I remember when you were the first one to lift it up Moral Monday, Joy. And we had 100,000 folk in the street, and the corporate media wasn't even talking about it. That's right. We had 2,000 people getting arrested. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about the people. And what if that had really been elevated? So there's been plenty of pushback, but there's been this chosen. Now, some of them like Pope Leo, because of this moment. And I've heard people say, we got to get, and they've come up with all kinds, preachers can come up with some slogan against somebody they don't like. But here's the problem. We don't need slogan, we need sweeping. We got to have a deep cleaning. And if this does not launch a movement, I'm not talking about one election and we go home. Right. Because that's what happened with Obama. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about us being able in our pulpits to say, we got the best lines anywhere. But if we don't move to public theology in the pulpit and in the street with impacted people and lift up what this kind of worship does to the ordinary person, like while he's doing this, 800 people died today from poverty and will die every day forward. We have to repent in the church that we've not adequately called attention to that. We've not had a national funeral for the 800 people dying every day. More than died when COVID got to 500, we called it an epidemic. We've never called the death by so I could go on, but my point is we must make sure we wake up to the right thing, not just a moment. And remember that the Jesus we serve didn't build a moment, he built a movement. He built disciples that were so filled with the Spirit that it didn't matter which Herod was in the throne, they took him on. It was long term, it was committed, it was deep, it was not something that was just a day or a week or just till the media stopped paying attention to it. And that's what I hear about the Pfleger saying, and that's one of the reasons we've relaunched Moral Monday, is to give a platform that we can't do this with one rally and everybody gets up and give their best speech and we say, didn't we tell them? We're talking about to get this impurity out of the house. We got to get a deep, long-term cleaning and then filling the house with the kinds of things that are necessary to shut the door as much as possible in our time, because otherwise we will have a sequel to Sinners. Because the line in Sinners is, and you, Joy, we getting ready to write on this, is they can't come in.
That's right.
So if the church is going to come out now, part of our first coming out has to be repentance. For us not being out way before this. See, we should have joined with Pfleger. I said when he turned the flag upside down, all of us should have been turning the flag upside down. When we went in the rotunda to pray and denounce that big deadly bill, every preacher should have joined and come. But we had something, man, I'm golfing. I got something that, well, y'all got that. We got, no. And so part of coming forward, you can never follow the Christ, the real Christ, without starting with repentance.
That's right. Amen.
Part of our work in the face of this craziness is not just to say how demonic and how evil it is, but to also have a sense. I go to Isaiah, and I'll close here, Father Pfleger. When Uzziah went crazy, cuckoo for Cocoa Pops, if you will, Isaiah's prayer was, Lord, I am a man of unclean lips, and I live in the midst of a people of unclean lips. He didn't say Uzziah was just the one that was wrong. He repented, and he said, he had been a priest. He was a priest. He said, now I have to be a prophet, right? And I have to first repent that I didn't speak soon enough. I didn't come out soon enough. I stayed focused only on my church and salary and whatever else for a long time. And I'm a part of opening this door. But I repent of that now. And in this season, I'm going to join God's army of sweepers to sweep these impurities
Bishop,
out.
can I just say this one last thing?
Please.
I co-sign with you 100%. We need to repent. We need a deep cleaning of our houses of worship. We need to turn the tables over and flip some tables. And we need to reclaim our prophetic voice.
Yes,
we were
Lord.
always supposed to be what the Pope is, I believe, doing right now. He's being a conscience to the world. And we need to reclaim that we've been pathetic instead of prophetic. And we need to be prophetic again, that reclaims our voice, get healed from our spiritual laryngitis, and again, speak, thus saith the Lord. Enough of religion. You know, throw all the religion stuff away. Let's go back to building the kingdom, and let's be prophetic and speak. Let's learn from what Leo just did. He's quoting the damn scriptures. He's telling the world, this is the real Jesus. That when we get back to just preaching the real Jesus, the radical Jesus that flips over tables and calls religions Pharisees and hypocrites and vipers, when we get back to that, Trump is going to dissipate right in front of our eyes.
That's right.
Ooh, Lord, listen.
And the trumpets that want to follow.
And the trumpets that want to follow.
They will know what Ezekiel said, there hath been and there is a prophet among the people. And so that's our calling right now. This ain't we're not looking for the bumper sticker preachers that just gonna jump out here for a minute and go home. We talking about the folks that's gonna be committed until. until
The new gay.
you know who by the way, I'll leave this. I know, Joy, you got to go. I read for this morning and Bishop Reverend Pfleger, in Revelation, the church of Pergamos and what Jesus said to them, commended them on. He said, "You live where Satan's seat is, but you've been faithful." He said, "That's why I'm commending you." Now, you're not a perfect church, but the one thing you got right is you live where Satan's seat is, right? And you have been faithful to challenge Satan in his own seat.
Yes.
We got it. That has to become now, you know, not
we
just
are.
Trump, but all of the authoritarians around the world and whatnot. But in where we are, when you live where Satan has put his seat, the church must be faithful so that we can get commended by Christ himself, by God's self, right? That is our calling, because we are watching Satan put down his seat. Now you read, y'all read the script. I'll stand on that and debate any so-called religious nationalism. The fact of the matter is, priest, Father Pfleger and I challenge anybody right now. We'll tag team and debate anybody anywhere. Because it's time to go to. It's time to come out now.
I call on Bishop Barber and Father Pfleger. I would take a debate with the two of you versus Doug Wilson and Joe Rigney. I would invite both of them on this show. If you two, I'm going to say it right now, Joe Rigney, I'll say Reverend Joe Rigney, that's what you call yourself, and Doug Wilson, come on here and debate these two brothers. Debate Father Pfleger and Bishop Barber. If you think that y'all call yourself theologians, you're writing books talking about empathy is dangerous, that we have to remove empathy because it's standing in the way of Jesus' kingdom. Y'all claim that war is peace, that war is just, that killing is justified. And you know, I will end with this as well, my two friends. There is this longing for Armageddon among these false Christians, these apostates, because they believe that's part of the reason that they're okay with the genocide in Gaza, that they believe that this rebuilding of the third temple, if the Muslims can be slaughtered, and the Jewish state, which is a secular state, you know, but which claims to represent all Jewish people, if they rebuild that temple, they believe that Armageddon will come.
Armageddon, yeah.
They're trying to bring it on, but they leave out the entire New Testament out of their theology. I notice whenever they quote something, they stay in the Old Testament, like Bibi Netanyahu. Right?
Absolutely.
Because they forget that was supposed to redeem all of the promises in the Old Testament was somebody called Jesus. And so they stay in the earliest books of the Old Testament. They stay way back there before Jesus is in the story. They can't deal with Jesus because everything that he was dealing with was against the state. And they're getting their followers to worship the state in the form of Donald Trump. This is apostasy. It's why I went through the definitions before you got on, Bishop, because I want people to understand when I don't call these people just blasphemers.
No,
they are apostates.
Oh no, this is let me say
it's heresy.
This is heresy. This is blasphemous. This is worship. But last thing, the hope in this is that we will do all that we have to do. But I want to quote one more thing from Revelation about Jesus. And this is what gives me hope every day. It says that the nations assembled for Armageddon, and then God stopped it. These folk better recognize their arms are too short to box with God. The God that we serve. I'm not here hopeful tonight because I think Father Pfleger and I can fix this. But I still serve a God that they tried to kill, and he got up out of the grave 3 days. And when he got up, he didn't run. He hung around.
He hung around
50 days and recruited.
Make sure you know I'm here.
I feel like preaching a little bit, but I'm telling you, they assembled for the war, and God stopped it.
They're hustlers of Satan, and he already fell once like lightning from the skies, and they on the ground laying with him.
That's right. Talk, Father. Y'all be good. I got to go.
I appreciate. Listen, this might be my favorite Moral Monday of all time. Father Michael Pfleger, Bishop William J. Barber. Lord have mercy, but Lord had mercy on the Joy Reid Show tonight that you all were both available at the same time. Brilliant. Love you both. Thank you both. Appreciate you both. If I can make that debate happen, it's happening. Thank you.
Love you,
Thank
Father.
you.
Love you,
Thank
Joy.
you, friends.
Take care.
Woo! Y'all got some. Listen. Jason, this was spiritual healing on tonight. This was the best Moral Monday I think we've ever had.
Did Reverend Barber just drop some Nas bars just
They
there? He
both
said you can't
dropped-
box with the hand of God?
Their arms are too short
to box
with God. We have an offering on the table from Joanna NYC. She said, "This is my offering, $50. Thank you so much. $4.99. We have 6 people throwing in. They said we need an online National Rebuke Day," says the Kim G313. We appreciate every single person. Lots of fire in the hundreds. And this is the thing. Every time the national media allows the right and right-wing so-called Christians to take hold of Christianity, when they poll, other than Robbie Jones, which is why we have him on, they poll as if all Christians think like this, that Christians are supposed to line up behind war, line up behind Israel, line up behind Zionism, because, you're supposed to bless Israel in order to be blessed. They line up behind all of these things, and they're using the essence of what they find in the Old Testament to lie to you because they don't know what's in the New Testament. They don't really recognize that Jesus is supposed to be here to fulfill the prophecies in the Old Testament. They have to stay in those old books. They have to stay in Leviticus so they can condemn gay people, and they have to stay in the pre-Matthew, Mark, Luke Bible, because they have to stay in the part of the Bible that gives them what they believe are justifications for war. They love the early parts of the Bible where you have all of these wars, where you have all of these mass slaughters, where lots of people die. They love that part of the Bible because it's about slaughter. What they can't deal with is that Jesus was a God that would have embraced Muslims, that would have embraced Jewish people, that would have embraced multiple religions, because he was against power. He was against state power. Who killed Jesus? Rome. What does Donald Trump represent? Rome. This is a Roman Empire style regime claiming to represent Jesus. That is antithetical to Jesus. It is, and this by a man who wouldn't touch he knew better than to touch that Bible. He knew better than to touch that Bible when he was standing there taking the oath of office, because he knew who he is loyal to. He knew who he gave his loyalty to, who he has surrendered his soul to. And it ain't Jesus.
Yes, I know, that's right. Listen, if you think about it, look at this picture they put up again, right?
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you a question. Do you see any crosses in this?
There's no crosses.
Okay. He wants to represent himself as Jesus.
And that figure at the top that I guess he thinks is some sort of archangel looks like a demon. A 3-horned demon in the center of that picture with only white people pictured. I don't know if that Jeffrey Epstein he's raising from the dead.
That looks like Jeffrey Epstein laying down on the ground,
Is he
doesn't it?
raising Jeffrey Epstein from the dead? Like what? This is demonic.
But
this
not
is
a one cross in that thing.
Not one cross. And this is supposed to represent, and with a light in his hand. Donald Trump said he's supposed to be representing a position. In what way, sir? Where is your stethoscope in this picture? Why are you wearing the garb of Jesus in this picture? Or at least what's depicted as the garb of Jesus in most art. He is above appearing to raise someone from the dead. This man has not just delusions of grandeur. He has delusions of godhood. He has delusions of godhood. And when he was rebuked by his own supporters, who at least have a kernel of understanding of the word, they may not truly understand the word, because if they did, they would care about the poor and the sick. They would care about the immigrant like Jesus did. They don't like any of that. They hate that. They hate the immigrant. They hate the poor. They don't want to pay taxes because the poor should take care of them damn selves. They hate everything that Jesus loved and love everything that Jesus hated. They love the state. They love power. They love the military. They love death. Christopher Hitchens talked about this in his book, where he said, you've got these people longing for the end of the world. And they think by allowing Israel to commit multiple genocide after genocide, killing and murdering and slaughtering every one of their neighbors, they think this is going to bring them into heaven, because they think this will rebuild the third temple. I hate to inform them and be the bearer of bad news, but Jesus is the third temple if you really are a Christian. But these people have invented their own religion. They've invented their own religion. And the religion is centered around its own God, whose name is Donald Trump. And they were like, we don't worship Donald Trump. We just think that he's fulfilling God's prophecies. Bullshit. Because if he didn't think you worshiped him, he wouldn't have put up that picture. He intends for you to worship him. You all fall down before golden idols at CPAC. You put up golden versions of him and fall down before them as idols. This is idolatry. It's apostasy. It's blasphemy. And we're not trying to be a religious show here. We're not here to be a church, because I actually believe that religion and the state should be completely separate, not just here, but in Israel too. This is a state. This is not a church, but there is a place for the church in a state. Just let me be clear. There's a place for the church in the state, and the place for the church is to be a moral voice. And if you want to say it's Jesus's church, the place for the church is to be a moral voice speaking up on behalf of the poor, the dispossessed, the immigrant. That is the place for the church if you believe in Jesus. That is what the church can do. And I think what Bishop Barber and Father Pfleger were saying is that that God blessed us with a pope who, in plain Chicago English, a Chicago Creole, who can say in English that Trump can understand, you are misusing the Bible. You are misusing Jesus. You are misusing my faith. You are misusing the faith of all Christians. You are abusing it, lying about it, inventing things about it, saying empathy is evil, saying that women are to be turned into servants and mules, that Black people are inferior, that brown people are inferior, that the immigrants need to be harmed, hurt, rounded up, deported, incarcerated. The people who support this, 80%, the people who are the most passionate about supporting harming immigrants and the poor call themselves Christians. And in Israel, the people who are most passionate about supporting the genocide call themselves Jews. But they're neither of them are that. No more than you would say that ISIS represents Islam. You can't say Trump represents Christianity, and you can't say Bibi Netanyahu represents Judaism. All of these people are apostates. We ran out of time. We didn't get to the Paulo Zampoli thing. We're going to put that on Wednesday. They're all apostates. They are taking all the Abrahamic religions. They are slandering Abraham by warping his religions and turning them into demonic faiths. Yes, sir.
He said he thought he was this was
a physician.
A physician.
A doctor.
I didn't know physicians had glowing orbs in their hands.
Yes. What is he doing with the glowing orb? What is the glowing orb, Dr. Trump?
I don't get it.
What is the glowing orb? Why are these people looking up with you? Why is the man on the right that looks like he's in an army hat
and
looking
I
up
swear
in your,
that looks
in
like
your
Jeffrey Epstein laying in that bed.
and raising Jeffrey Epstein from the dead? Maybe Jeffrey Epstein isn't dead. Maybe he's trying to let you know Jeffrey Epstein's still alive. All right, y'all. We've gone over time, but this has been, I have to be honest, the great, yes. And I've noticed too, as well as the chat had, that he made sure that everyone depicted in the picture is white. You know, just like in Jesus's time, when it was a bunch of white Europeans in the Holy Land. Blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus that would have made no sense in the Holy Land. They can't accept even that Jesus is a brown Palestinian. They made Donald Trump the new Jesus of America. Doctors don't wear robes, as the chat has said. Doctors don't dress like that. Donald Trump did not. That Donald Trump is just saying whatever he has to say to get out of the latest pickle that he's found himself in, because even his own supporters, Marjorie Taylor Greene and such, were condemning this post. And so he had to say something. What was he going to say? He had to say something. Donald Trump, who the FBI investigated a woman who said that he sexually assaulted her as a child. To take this back to where we started, if we're going to make a list of the men who need to be removed from power due to sexual aggression against women, women or children, if we're going to make a list of the people who we can't trust with our daughters and sons, we can't trust with our young people, who we can't trust around people because of their lasciviousness, Donald Trump is first on the list. Eric Swalwell's somewhere on the list, apparently, but we haven't even adjudicated that. We've adjudicated it with Trump. There's been no adjudication of Eric Swalwell. We adjudicated it with Trump. E. Jean Carroll was grabbed by the PUSSY by force by Donald Trump in the 90s. A jury of Donald Trump's peers said that happened. The FBI investigated a case in which a woman claimed to have been sexually assaulted by Donald Trump. He has not been accused of that, but they were investigating it. So there's a long list. So we're not going to get caught up in talking about the former congressman in California. There's also another one, Mr. Gonzalez, he needs to get investigated, thrown out of Congress too. What we're going to do is we're going to focus on saying that we want them all out. The entire Epstein class, anyone who's abusive, anyone who's a sexual abuser, everybody got to go. And it's a long list that's in both parties. Everybody got to go. We want to be governed by men of morals and women of morals. We want people that have at least the basic functional morality. And that's not just about Democrats or Republicans. It's period. It's on period. And we want our churches and our pastors, whether they are Catholic or Protestant, whether it is the Muslim mosques or whether it is the Jewish temples, we want them all on one accord to say we want a moral nation. And moral does not mean religious. It means it cares for the poor, the sick, the elderly, and the immigrant, where people don't die because they don't have health care, where people don't die because they can't afford food, where people don't die because they don't have shelter, where they don't live in the street. We want a country that's decent. All right, do we have time for a moment of joy? I don't think we do. I think we don't need a moment of joy. Hallelujah. We're going to go ahead. The whole episode was joy. Thank you very much, guys. We're going to let y'all go on. I know the WNBA draft is happening. Let me let you guys go watch that. We will rack up our moment of joy on Wednesday. Love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Don't forget these glasses, y'all. Make sure you vote. These are fabulous. Let me put them on one more time and just take them out. Look at the packaging. The packaging is fabulous. These are the Ramari Bearden glasses. Make sure you snap a photo, snap a pic. Okay. And you guys are going to get to vote next week. All right. See y'all. Take care. Love you. Bye.
Getting back to the basics, grassroots level. Let me dig a little deeper with the shovel. Plenty can't tell the forest from the trees, and I'm hard to detect, like a black hole in the dark. Injustice anywhere, it's a threat to justice everywhere. Let me make this clear, I got a bone to pick, and I'll never fear the threat of poverty. They don't want to talk about it, they rather party, so I'm a real talk about it, for sure.